not necessarily tribal or regional.
Now let's have a look at some of the stories making headway on the Daily Trust newspaper, just as we wait for our reviewer to talk to us about some of these stories in the course of our discussions. Now, the lead story there says, disqualification threat, how APC guidelines put Amechi Ngige, Malemi others in tight corner. The writers there say aspirants have 72 hours to resign. I'm not aware of new rules. Labour Minister Nwajiba pays 100 million naira for presidential forms. And then you see other stories on the Daily Trust newspaper, the one on page 11, 2023, why aspirants must undergo drug test before primaries, NDLEA. And then you see the story about FEC approves 853 million naira for Ajakuta Steel Itakbai Iron Ore concessioning. You'll see other stories there on the Daily Trust newspaper. NAS criminalizes ransom payment. Two Zamfara emirs disposed over banditry. Why I shot 9 kids playing football, Edo vigilante. And then there's a picture there that shows you Malami and Michi Ngige. Then other stories on the Daily Trust newspaper. You see the story about 30 days after. Government yet to rescue Kaduna train attack hostages. And then the writers there say it's been a month of trauma, victims' families. Do everything to release abductees. This is coming from Colonel Dengiwa. And then there's a picture there that shows you the hostages. You know, they're still in captivity of the bandits. They released those pictures, I think, a few days ago.
Yeah.
And then also, I just saw just a moment ago that a mother and her 5-month-old baby have been released. But we're looking forward to see other hostages being released as well.
That's right, especially when you consider that one of the hostages also gave birth in that facility. The story goes on to capture how medical doctors were gotten, into the bushes to aid the delivery. You begin to wonder, even in the precinct of a hospital, delivery it's a very critical, process that should be done under the most hygienic environment possible, and where, for instance, the delivery also result in complications. You want to be sure that the right kind of personnel and equipment are available to provide assistance and help to save life. And so you begin to wonder how all of these operations would possibly be taking place in the situation, the type that we have seen in the videos that have been released. So we join them to continue to hope positively that reasons will prevail, humanity will prevail, and we would see these Nigerians reunite with their families and loved ones in the quickest time possible. It's a very pathetic one. You could see images from that in the cover of the Daily Trust wraparound the story, and rightly so. Colonel Angiwa is saying do everything possible, everything possible to have them released. I think this charge essentially goes to the government, and while we are hoping, we hope, while we are looking forward to their release, we hope that the government is also taking care of the families back home, because traumas like this are not things that individuals can deal with on their own. They should be assisted by institutions, that are primarily set up to handle trauma, to enable them cope while all of this is unfolding, until such a time where this becomes history.
It's really tragic, the fact that also these bandits pick up, children, infants, newborn babies, and even the old. Some will say these are just baggage for them.
True.
Aren't they? Why drag them, into this?
It tells you how sophisticated the operation of banditry has become. I'd mentioned here on the show, I think, sometimes last year in Kaduna, somewhere around the Kaduna-Abuja Expressway, where a woman was adopted, ransom were paid, she was pregnant at the time, and they released her back to her house. The moment she was done giving birth, some 2-3 weeks later, they came back for her and the newborn baby. For them to contemplate all of these things, it then shows you the sophistication, you know, that these groups have taken on. It's something the government should be really worried about, and do everything possible to make our environment safe, not just for pregnant women, but just for everybody. Today, schools are no longer opened. We were initially talking about over 10 million out of school children. Now, even those ones who are in school can no longer go to school. The schools have become unsafe, you know, place for you to have your wards. If you add those numbers in the Northwest and the North Central to what you currently have, you know, of the 10 million, that's a colossal number. That's the size of a number of African countries, you know, having their future waste away because of a situation that has refused to go away.
It's quite disheartening, I must say. You know, there's also the story about, I've not read the story, that says why I shot 9 kids playing football. You know, Edo vigilante. I don't know much about that story.
Yeah, that's the.
Well, I shot 9 kids playing football.
Yes, it's crazy how some of these things happen in this country, and how we seem to take these issues with a kid's glove. You know, that's an amount of that's you can't explain whether it's carelessness or it's a deliberate act, and then you get all kinds of explanations that seem to minimize the gravity of what has happened. You know, somebody coming out to say, what kind of reason can you possibly advance, you know, for shooting 9 kids, you know, in playing football matches, you know, and that calls for the kind of calls that we see today by the NDLA asking for people to take drug tests. You know, that should also apply to the police. That should apply to critical government agencies, you know, doing one thing or the other. So it's sad, you know, to see the kind of things we see, and it also tells you the amount of value that we place on life in this part of the world, and I hope that the government will do everything possible to, you know, properly try these kind of cases and you know, nip them in the bud and get people to begin to act as a human being that you're holding any kind of ammunition. It should be for the protection of the citizen and not becoming a source of danger for wherever you show up. The major story on the Daily Trust, of course, how APC guideline has put Amechi, Ngige, Malemi, and others in the tight corner. And the worry among Nigerian citizenry is we have seen a number of states where commissioners with intentions are resigning, but at the federal level, it appears the ministers are sitting tight. Why do we have it? Why is it so easy at the states, you know, to get these people to comply? And right here at the center, it's becoming so much of a difficult thing
I'll
to
say they would like to eat their cake and have it at the same time.
Interesting. And so these are from the covers of the Daily Trust, if you like, but we have these interesting stories from the Daily Trust inside pages we would like to share with you on page 4 of the Daily Trust inside page, and it reads 8,372 people killed in the north in 2021. That is according to the broadcast media owners. And I'm sure this is merely data collected from all of the reportage that were done over the years. Such a colossal number, 8,372 people killed in the north. By the way, this is not the entire figure for the country, but for a country that is not at war, I don't know how much. This is not a palatable comparison to do, but I don't know how much a country, for instance, like Ukraine, that is involved in a war, has lost for just people going about their daily businesses who run into all kinds of banditry. For this country, for this part of the country to lose about 8,300 people shows clearly how massive, very massive some of these conditions are, Zainab.
Truly, very, very disheartening. 8,000. That's quite a number.
That's huge.
And some would say these are just maybe collective numbers, approximately. Maybe
Yeah.
it can be more, or it can be less as well.
Yeah. And still staying with the inside page of the Daily Trust, on page 16, you know, that pathetic story, it's coming from Niger State, where and the cover there is, terrorists now sleep in our vacated rooms, Niger IDPs.
That's quite a takeover, I
You know, that's a takeover. That's a territorial, they are asserting their territorial dominance in a country, you know, with a visible armed forces. This should not be happening, Zainab. This should not be happening. The original owners of the houses now sleep in makeshift camps, by the way. Some of them in schools that are currently on vacation, cramped up in their numbers. And you now have terrorists, you know, taking complete control of their abodes. And there is this story down there on the same page 16, you know, that should worry all of us, Zainab. Robbers attack POS shop, kill man, steals 0.2 million in Suleja.
You know, I've seen stories of how, you know, POS operators are being attacked. I spoke to someone, I think, a few months ago about how safe, you know, the business is. And then he kept, you know, lamenting on issues like this, that sometimes they're being duped, sometimes they're being attacked. Some of them are even killed, you know, in the process.
Yeah.
And I don't know. You know, sometimes you see them with fanny packs with monies inside. I think it's not really safe.
Yeah, this is beginning to throw up the hazards that are involved in this whole POS operation. It's cash, for God's sake. And if the banks would make so much provision for security, you should be worried. I should think that operators of this POS should be located in places where they think it's safe enough to have their operation, rather than just spring up shops every here and there without taking into account the kind of risks, you know, because people don't seem to do a lot of risk evaluation when it comes to this. And with money, people will do anything, just about anything to that. We should be worried about another story, still on page 16 of the crime and city page, and it reads, kidnapping. There is intelligence gathering failure in the FCT, according to the minister. I mean, this is coming from the government source. What shouldn't we be worried?
You know, I saw a headline, I think a few days ago, the DSS was issuing a statement about, I think they got a hint that there might be, you know, a bomb attack. I think I saw it somewhere, but I don't know, this is coming from the FCT, you know, minister.
It's amazing. And you'll find that lovely pictorial, lovely but sad, right next to what you call a pedestrian bridge. You find Nigerians, you know, doing everything to jump over a highway. It's amazing what we do, you know, to do this. And we will quickly take other papers at this point. Haven't served you some very interesting stories from the inside pages of the Daily Trust. If you want more, I can assure you that the paper is loaded, you know, from cover to cover, where you'll find very interesting stories that are actionable, that keeps you in touch with the reality of things happening everywhere around the country. We'll move on to the Punch newspaper. And the major headline, it's on the Electoral Act. More commissioners step down as Buhari ministers refuse to go. The riders there read, Governor Tambuwal, 11 commissioners, SSD chief of staff resign. Amosun joined presidential race. Yahya Bello, Nwajuba pick form. I won't resign, says Ngige. NLC flays campaign amidst ASU strike. And on the top of the nameplates there, we have subsidy hits 1.35 trillion in 4 months. NNPC to deduct 672 billion. You'll find that story on page 24. Senate prohibits ransom payments. Adoptees' families seek talk with bandit. Drug tests. NMA back NDLA, NBA demand for legal backing. This is indeed gathering momentum. FG state local government shares 725 billion as federal allocation raises. That is that from the Punch newspaper.
Quite very Interesting, Sunday. Now, I would like to digress a little bit. And then this is coming from the Vanguard newspaper. We don't have a picture for you to see, but I think a few days ago, there was an advert, or I would say a picture of a corps member that went viral on social media that she had gone missing. Unfortunately, this morning, we're seeing that that corps member was found dead, you know, from Lukogoma. I think she came out from Lukogoma and wanted to go someplace else, and then she was kidnapped. And then we're seeing that her body has been found mutilated, you know, according to a statement released by the NYC on their social media handles. Her name is Stephanie Semba Terungwa Edward. You know, she was found in her NYC trousers with some of her body parts removed by the killers. And then the family declared the fair-complexioned lady missing in a notice shared on social media a few days ago. It's quite sad,
Painful,
isn't it, that we continue
clearly.
to see stories like this.
Yes, clearly a case of ritual killing. But what is even more painful, that it is happening right in the heart of the city, the Federal Capital Territory. It's something that should be of concern to all of us. At that stage, where you think you have gone through the major hustles, you are now prepared for what life, puts in front of you with regards to settling down and taking on other challenges in life, and things like this happen. It's a sad development in our history, because as a UCOM member, you are serving your country, and your country should do everything to protect you. It is sad that this has happened. Our prayers and thoughts are with the family of the UCOM member, and indeed the National Youth Service Corps in general. We will take a short break at this point.